Hi, it's Stephen Cruz here. I'm a mortgage broker with Verico iMortgage Solutions and the president of BNI Rocky Mountain Thunder. And today I'm here with Kyle Brost with Prestige Pop-Up Sprinklers. And Kyle has some really interesting information for us to chat about today. Kyle, why don't you tell me a little bit about yourself?
Yeah. So Prestige Pop-Up Sprinklers is a family-owned and operated business that's been around for, we're going on about 30 years now. Ultimately, we provide underground lawn sprinkler systems. Our tagline is, it's a lifestyle thing. Irrigation is a luxury item. We like to make the whole entire purchase process and maintenance process simple and hassle-free. Ultimately, with irrigation, it frees up your time. You're no longer chasing the hose around the yard, forgetting to shut it off. No hassle in the essence that every system that we install is automatic and has sensors that shut off the system when it rains, things like that. You become the envy of the block with having that nice, lush green irrigation lawn without having to be out there every day watering by hand. And ultimately, because we're humans, sometimes we forget to shut off the sprinkler. And automatic irrigation creates cost savings because you don't leave on the hose overnight. So that's a little bit about us and kind of what we do. In this presentation today, Steve, I'm going to just share some information about irrigation that a lot of people aren't really aware of. In the city of Calgary, there are no laws governing the installation and maintenance of irrigation systems, but the plumbing code, which is nationally and provincially regulated, does have some restrictions, and that deals with the cross-connection control device. And the cross-connection control device is very important because it keeps our water supply safe and keeps the dirty water outside of the house while allowing the clean water in the house to, serve the taps, that sort of thing. We're a member of the Irrigation Association, and we carry certification to that extent. I am a certified irrigation contractor. But let's jump back to cross-connection control. A lot of people wonder what cross-connection control is, and essentially anytime we have a water system interconnected with another water system, there's a cross-connection control concern. So if you think about your house gets connected to the city water supply, and when it's connected to the city water supply, there's a cross-connection issue. And so cross-connection control, what it does is it prevents the downstream water from leaking back into the water supply. So if you take a look at this picture here, you notice the man on the left is playing with his dog, and he's got some fertilizer attached to his hose bib outside. Well, if there's no backflow prevention, what will happen is the hose bib on the outside will suck water back in through the system, and it will contaminate the neighbor's water supply, potentially making them very sick or even potentially killing them. When it comes to backflow, there's two cases of backflow. There's back siphonage and back pressure. Back siphonage is essentially when the water supply that's feeding the downstream house, for example, starts to suck water back. The most common case of that is if you think of running your kitchen faucet and there's a fire down the street, the fire engines hook up to the fire hydrant and they start sucking up all of the water. And if your tap is on, instead of water coming out, your tap will start sucking air back in. Well, when it sucks air back in, it's sucking all the water in your house back into the city municipal water supply. And so you can get some contamination there. The other one is back pressure. Back pressure usually happens when there's a device like a pump or a boiler system, or your house is at the top of a slope or something. And back pressure is where water pressure pushes its way back into the water supply. So, for example, the water pressure in your house, for whatever reason, might be at 100 psi. Well, the water supply is at 25 psi. Because there's that difference, that water in your house gets pushed back into the water supply, hence causing more contamination. When it comes to prevention, there are a couple simple ways to prevent backflow. On hose bibs, there are vacuum breakers. These are a temporary solution in that they only work in the environment where the water supply will be turned off. A lot of people remove these devices from their hose bib because they leak and they're an annoyance. But the reality is they're designed to leak, and that leaking is protecting the house water supply. When it comes to irrigation, dual checks in the province of Alberta have been an acceptable backflow prevention device until January of 2014, where the plumbing code changed. Dual checks are no longer illegal devices. If you have one protecting your irrigation system or your house, it's perfectly fine as it's been grandfathered. But if you do any new irrigation or new changes to your plumbing code, plumbing, you need to use a double check or reduced pressure assembly. And the big difference between a double check and a double check and a dual check is that a double check ultimately can be certified, and it is required by law every year that the device be tested. And the reason it needs to be tested is the check valves in the device can fail, and when they fail, the certification process makes sure that they're working, and if they're not, that they can be updated and corrected, and then paperwork can be filed with the municipality, such as the City of Calgary. And an enhancement on the double check is something called the reduced pressure assembly. If you look in the picture in the bottom left-hand corner, you can see that there's the reduced pressure assembly. On the bottom, there's a little vent port. And essentially what that vent port allows is if one of the checks fails, instead of the water potentially leaking back into the supply, which can happen, very, very rare remote, what will happen is the water will shoot out the bottom of the device. And an area where you use a reduced pressure assembly is when you are connecting chemicals into a water supply. So say you have an irrigation system that uses fertigation, where we directly inject fertilizer into the water that goes out to the sprinkler heads. That's a very high-risk situation, and so you want and require by law a reduced pressure assembly, so when it does fail, the water bleeds out through the bottom instead of kind of bleeding through the back into the water supply if there is a failure. These devices ultimately don't guarantee 100% protection, but they're guaranteed to provide the best protection possible for your water supply. When it comes to cross-connection control, our company does certify devices and install them. We can pull the permits with the city. We can perform the yearly tests. We submit the test results to the city and repair the devices as required. When it comes to cross-connection control, if you don't certify your device, the city may assess you a fine, anywhere between $250 to $500 for failing to certify your device. If you continue to ignore the city's requests, and there is a situation where there is backflow that leaks from your property into the city supply and causes injury or illness, you can be fined up to $250,000, get 15 years in jail, and any other additional legal action of your neighbors that decide to sue you because their family got sick or potentially died. So cross-connection control is a very important thing. We take it seriously. We follow the plumbing code. We make sure that we file all the documentation with the city. We have 2 guys on staff that take care of these devices. We do certify devices for residential irrigation systems, commercial irrigation systems, backflow on commercial buildings, as well as boiler systems. So great referral sources for us. If you have a cross-connection control device, we'd love to hook up with you and get that taken care of. If you know any commercial businesses that have these devices, such as commercial irrigation systems, commercial businesses, or residential customers, we would love to get linked up with those guys and see if we can help them out. Now, backflow prevention is a real important topic, and if you have any questions, feel free to give us a call. So, Steve, does that give you a little bit more information about what we do when it comes to irrigation and backflow prevention?
Yeah, that's fantastic. And I had never heard of that before. I had no idea that I could have problems with the water system because of something I was doing. Crazy.
Yeah, well, and it's one of those little hidden risks that we never know about, but the plumbing code is there to protect us and protect our families, and that's why we do it.
And so your main business is to install sprinkler systems, and so what do you do with respect to that?
So when it comes to installing irrigation systems, we get connected to the domestic water supply, install a backflow prevention device, and then we install irrigation lines and sprinkler heads throughout the property such that we break up the property into different zones based on weather conditions, such as more sunlight or more shade, as well as the type of plant material that's there. Once we install an irrigation system, it's pretty much maintenance-free after that. You do have to maintain it at the start of the season, getting that backflow device checked. And in the winter months, you do have to have it winterized so that the water doesn't freeze. But for most people, once they have an irrigation system, they don't go back.
Yeah, I have one. I love it, and you maintain mine. So if someone wants to get a hold of you and have you come out and help them with an irrigation system in their house, how can they do that?
The best way is ultimately to give us a call at 403-250-8464 or reach out to us online at www.prestigepopups.com. We have contact forms there, so if you're in your pajamas right now, you can send us an email and we'll get a hold of you in the early morning.
Sounds good. All right. Well, thanks, Kyle. That was great information.
Thanks, Steve.
Talk to you later.